What's going on, and welcome to Tasty Flicks. My name's Seth. This is Sarah, and we just saw The Batman. Directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson, this movie takes place year 2 of Batman in Gotham. While he's fighting a bunch of criminals, he has to start investigating murders being done by the Riddler, played by Paul Dano, in which he has to investigate some of the more corrupt elements of Gotham, trying to figure out why the Riddler is doing this and what he's going to do next. He's accompanied by Andy Serkis, Jeffrey Wright, Zoe Kravitz, Colin Farrell, John Turturro, and a bunch of other people in this movie. And it's a dark movie with a lot of investigations and punching people in the face and bats. We both saw it, and let's jump into quick impressions first of what we thought of the movie. What'd you think?
I really enjoyed the movie. First off, I am not really like a superhero fan in general, I would say. I would like Batman tends to be kind of one that I prefer just because it's a little bit darker. I really enjoyed this movie though, because it didn't feel like a superhero movie. It felt like a detective movie. Even like the pacing, like in the beginning, felt a little bit like a horror movie. Even like we almost got a horror movie, but it was more like detective, like dark, which I really enjoyed. Robert Pattinson, I thought was a great Batman. I still hear people talk about him like he's just sparkly vampire boy, and
Yeah, we're past that.
yeah, it's just like he's had just wonderful performance after wonderful performance, and then this is just that continuing.
He's had more good performances now than he has made Twilight movies. So
Yeah.
At that point, you have to kind of look at the balance of that, especially how long ago that was. We had Stop Living in the Past.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have done some really cheesy movies in their youth when it comes to acting. And
Sure.
he's done all sorts of great movies now. So
And I mean, he's proven himself to be, I think, an extremely talented actor. So I thought he was great. One thing I really liked about his performance is how much he communicated without communicating anything. Like, not a lot of dialogue, just kind of the Batman. And I thought it was done really well. It was just it just feels like a real movie. It's told, like, the storytelling is done really well. I know you and I have talked about it before, but when a movie doesn't just kind of spoon feed you everything, it's like there's this world that exists, and we're just kind of like taking a look at one kind of series of events that happens within that world, and the world was there before we started looking and continues to be there after the movie's over. I think it just feels like a real world.
it's in the whole not being spoon-fed thing, it's nice because the movie has a similar pacing to like almost a David Fincher movie, like Seven or Zodiac or something like that. And that's not something that you typically get from a superhero movie. So the pacing is an unraveling of information. And, there is that to a certain degree in a lot of movies, but not into a degree that it's been designed that way to have a reveal eventually in that information. I mean, we know it's the Riddler, but this version of the Riddler is not the Riddler that anyone who's watched or read Batman in the past is used to. This guy is more like the Zodiac Killer than anything. And the movie is really playing into the mystery element. The investigation is the biggest on-screen factor in this movie, more than action, more than like Batman being a ninja, doing stealth shit, more than anything else. And so it doesn't spoon feed you. It's not like super confusing, but it is paced in a way that is more intriguing than like, oh, the aliens showed up. Will they be able to beat them? Oh yeah, they're definitely gonna be able to beat them. That's what superheroes do. Oh, one of them died, but they'll be back in a movie or two. It doesn't have that feeling. So yeah, I
has
agree.
Has to save the person.
Has
Okay,
to save
they
the
did
person.
it.
Exactly. I'll just jump in a little bit here. I'm just gonna be straightforward with this. This is probably my second favorite Batman movie I've seen. First one being Dark Knight, of course. That movie's just so good. It's hard to I don't know if somebody's gonna be able to beat it or not. But this one's really good though. Let's see. Couple quick things. The tone and atmosphere of the movie is really fucking cool. The cinematography is really good. The atmosphere of Gotham is awesome. It's dark. It almost reminds you of like Dark City. It's like it's almost never daytime in this movie, and it adds to the element of like almost like a film noir, like the dark, rainy streets, criminals, Batman doing more investigative type stuff. A lot of James Gordon. With him, working alongside him on these investigations, it all adds to this like eerie, just kind of dark atmosphere that I really enjoyed. The cinematography was good too. All the frames were really good, or the framing was good. All the scenes were really well done. And on top of that, I think the sound design in this movie is really good. A couple of things I noticed is the emphasis on in certain scenes, like Batman walking up, and it emphasizes his footsteps, almost like he's like a monster or some kind of like mythological being. It adds like this tension for criminals, like you're experiencing it through the criminals' eyes, what it's like for Batman to just show up when he's just been, of myth and legend to you. Sound design was really good in this, and there's a lot of silent parts as well, which I think is really cool because in a time where comic book movies reign supreme in Hollywood and cinema and have pretty much destroyed so much potential for other movies out there. They're all fun popcorn flicks that are like made in a way that's like taste tested like Pepsi is. You're going to get some drama, you're going to get some comedy, you're going to get some action, you're going to get some comedy again, get some drama, and it's all paced perfectly to keep you constantly entertained. There's nothing wrong with that, but this movie is shot more like a film, a movie, and you could make the argument they're both that, but it really likes to sit in its scenes longer than I'm used to with a lot of superhero movies. This is an almost 3-hour movie though, so it has plenty of time to sit, and I honestly, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later, I think they could have shaved off like maybe 15 minutes of this movie, mostly when it came to Selena Kyle's arc. I thought it was kind of bloated and not that interesting, but that's my own opinion. But going back to the intro though, it's interesting because like talking about the sound design and the visual stuff, I think it's really interesting how they do the intro with Paul Dano kind of like stalking that dude and killing him. We're doing spoilers here. Hopefully you know that. The way they like have him in the background and the TV hits his glasses or whatever, makes his eyes like look like eerie almost, like like they're glowing, but it's like quiet. He's not like sneaking around like he's like some kind of professional assassin. He's you don't really have a whole lot of info conveyed yet, but once he attacks the dude and he starts like breathing crazy and like goes oh and like hits him, you get more of a emotional feeling from that. Yeah. Like this kill is like a righteous kill for him. Yeah. And that's something that you get just out of the audio alone, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
But back onto the intro of like Batman, this is actually in the very beginning. There's this whole thing. It's probably one of my favorite scenes I've seen in a Batman movie, which is really kind of crazy to say because it wasn't even like really an action scene. But the whole beginning where he's doing like the monologue about like putting fear into criminals and stuff like that, and it's showing the bat signal in the air. And all these criminals are like committing crimes and stuff like that. But once they see that, they start getting kind of worried that he might be coming. And he's not going to be able to get all of them. But it kind of shows that in the zeitgeist of Gotham, there's like a monster that's coming after villains. And so they have to be afraid of that. And it's kind of an interesting way to view that. They really nailed it in those scenes in the beginning of like how even if he's not showing up for you, you know you could be the guy that he's after, and it's almost like a horror movie. It's like he's Jason or something, like
Yeah.
he's coming for you.
Yeah.
And then again with the pacing and the footsteps, stuff like that, when he does end up attacking, coming after the people who are mugging the dude, he's not even seen yet, but you hear him walking, and it's got a horror movie vibe to it, which I really dug, because it did kind of dawn on me that this is a horror movie for villains, essentially. And I really, really liked that.
I really just enjoyed like the juxtaposition of them like kind of introducing the villain of the movie, and then also being like, here's Batman, also the villain. I just thought it was really interesting to build kind of the movie and the characters that way. I'm kind of like starting from the same place.
Yeah. I also thought it was really interesting in this movie. So this is supposed to be year 2 of Batman, and everybody's got different views on that. Some people talk about it like he's supposed to be like super experienced by now, and other people are talking about like he's not experienced. And in my mind, 2 years into anything is not very long.
Yeah.
And so when you're seeing all these scenes where he's like attacking people in sloppy ways and he's getting shot a lot in this movie, this is still a Batman who's pretty fresh on what he's doing. And I think that's conveyed pretty well. And I think even though it does feel less satisfying, in the sense of somebody who's like a fan of Batman, not seeing Batman doing like the Batman things, if in a next movie, like a sequel, he becomes more refined in how he works, I think it'll pay off, because you'll get that hero's journey. You'll get to see that evolution in his character. But I think it also plays really well in everything, in the sense that this movie's called The Batman, and they almost never refer to him as Batman. Even when he's talking about himself, at one point he says the Batman, when he's talking about this could end, the Batman. It's like a concept. It's not even fully laid out. More so people are calling him like a vigilante in vengeance. So it's like, even though he's been around for like 2 years at this point, less than 2 years, he's not established he's known of. There's a vigilante out there, but he's not established as the hero Batman. So this movie's not, it skips the origin story of his parents getting killed and all this stuff, but it is in a way a weird origin story for the Batman itself.
It like skips like the Bruce Wayne origin story, and you're just getting like a flat like Batman origin story,
which is really interesting, because like
I really liked it.
All the the Nolan Batman movies at least like go into like building up how he got to be Batman, but this is almost like building up Batman's mythology in Gotham, because by the end of the movie, he's doing this for personal reasons, and villains know that he's out there, but they all haven't even seen him yet. He shows up here and there. They've heard about him. And by the end, when the big event happens and everything gets flooded and he's actually like saving people, they're starting to recognize him as a hero. And now it's almost birthing him as a hero. And hopefully in a sequel, he will be more of the Batman people who might have criticized this movie are hoping for. It's a really weird origin story for the concept of Batman, and skipping the Bruce Wayne thing, which the origin story of that, which I'm 100% okay with. A lot of people have said this. I agree with it. We don't really need to do like origin stories of like really well-known superheroes anymore, because we all know the story. Even people who don't read the comics or watch the movies know of them. But I just thought it was a really cool concept that works good in this movie, but could really work really well and retroactively make this movie even better if it gets a sequel that plays off of the build-up this movie did. It also has a really interesting closure, whereas all the Batman movies where his parents get killed off and you get that intro of like, oh, that's tragic, I can't believe that happened. This movie plays around with this idea of the closure of him finding out what did happen to his parents and getting a resolution to it, some kind of end point that of course won't fix him, forever of that, but what they do with what's his name, Carmine Falcone, with him getting killed and finding out all the information about what happened with his parents, stuff like that. It does kind of put like a cap on that arc. We don't have to sit there and play around with that intro stuff anymore. We can just move on.
Yeah, and I think they did like really interesting things with like the character development of Batman. Like, you know, it is fairly early on. Like, he's not that well established, although is, you know, doing the things. It's like a very like emotional and like volatile character. And, you know, when you think about like kind of the arc where he starts to like question what his motives are in doing this, you know, I was thinking about watching it like, you know, when Alfred gets like put in the hospital or whatever, like how would the story be different if in that moment he didn't have Alfred? Like if Alfred died and he didn't have Alfred to like talk him off of that ledge when he was like convinced that, you know, maybe he is in the wrong. So I thought it was just really interesting to play the character that way and then really give him this believable moment where like he is questioning himself and like needs to be talked down. And Alfred is there to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
on that note, what'd you think of the relationship between Alfred and Bruce Wayne, and how Andy Serkis and Robert Pattinson played that?
I didn't have an issue with it. You know, they don't. There's not a lot of Alfred really in the movie, but I think it kind of plays off how new Bruce Wayne is in this thing that he's doing. Like he's so consumed by this this thing. It's so emotional for him still, that he's just not really, you don't get a lot of Bruce in the movie because he's just so obsessed. And so, you know, it makes sense. Like you don't see Alfred a lot because he doesn't see Alfred a lot. Alfred's kind of just, you kind of get this idea that Alfred is just sort of taking care of things while, you know, Bruce is having this meltdown, you know, being the Batman. I just think it's a really like believable sell. Like this is how humans are. Like this is what happens. It's not just like this fake superhero story.
Yeah. I liked Alfred and Bruce Wayne's dynamic in this. I actually wish I saw more of them on screen together. We don't see a whole lot of it, but when we do, I do think Andy Serkis and Robert Pattinson have a good chemistry. In all the movies, you always get the relationship of those two together. By those two, I mean Andy Serkis and Robert Pattinson, because they're in all the movies. Obviously, I mean Bruce Wayne and Alfred. But they always have like almost like a butler guy who hires them dynamic with some good friendship. In this, there's like an interesting, almost like fatherly dynamic to Alfred that I thought was kind of interesting. It's just slightly different. But the thing I really, really, really appreciated, and I would love to see more of if they do a sequel to this, which I think we will get one, hopefully done by Matt Reeves, is Alfred got involved with decoding the cipher, which I thought was really interesting. Because, like, you know, in some of the Batman movies, Alfred will, like, also hit some keys on the keyboard with a computer. And you're like, oh, he's helping. But in this, I thought it was kind of cool because, like, first off, you start with Alfred showing concern with what's going on and his obsession with, you know, being the Batman and pursuing this. And through conversation that you can tell they've had many times, he voices the concern but knows he's not going to stop him. But he would like him to stop, but then also feels compelled to help because he knows he can. Or he knows he can. And so even though Pattinson, I mean, it is him, Bruce Wayne doesn't ask him to start helping with stuff, he naturally starts kind of taking a look at the cipher, starts going through it, starts throwing ideas out there. And it was kind of a cool thing to see, I guess, the collaborative effort. This isn't even the only time it happens in the movie. Him and Jeffrey Wright, who's playing James Gordon, they're like actively working together constantly throughout the movie, which I thought was really cool as well. This is before he's Commissioner Gordon, so like it's interesting that like it's almost an origin story to him and their dynamic as well, which I think we'll see evolve through the movies. But yeah, I kind of like this this portrayal of an early Batman that is working collaboratively with other people. It was kind of cool to see. But kind of back to the Alfred thing, I like their dynamic, and I'm a big fan of Andy Serkis. I think he's fantastic. Typically, he's behind digital makeup, but he's a good actor, and I think he's a really good pick for this. And yeah, on top of that, because I didn't really talk about it too much, Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne and Batman, I think he does a good job. I wasn't worried about him. I know when he was first announced, it kind of got the Heath Ledger thing where people were like, what the fuck? I can't believe you're picking him. I wasn't worried about that just because I've seen plenty of his more modern and recent movies, and he's definitely somebody who's committed to playing roles. He's not one note. And the only thing I was kind of interested in is like, his physique possibly. He's not like a super big buff guy, but he doesn't need to really be that. I don't need him to look like Ben Affleck in a balloon suit, because Ben Affleck looked like he was in a balloon suit. But it didn't really play a factor. I mean, the way he was portrayed as Batman, his physicality, everything seemed to work. But when it comes down to the way he played him, I know there's been criticisms of the way he plays Bruce Wayne. And I think that one's a little tough for me to talk on too much because this movie is like mostly Batman, which I actually liked. I actually kind of get bored of the Bruce Wayne shit. Like one of my least favorite things about the Nolan movies was the facade of the billionaire playboy. I always thought that was kind of dorky, and people were always telling me like, well, he's got to do that. That's like his character. I'm like, but if you're like a dude who's like actually dedicated to taking out criminal elements in your city, and you're doing this based off of vengeance because your parents were killed, you're gonna sit around and just pretend to be some like goofy fucking playboy guy? Like it just never. I don't care about it. If you like it, that's cool, but I've never cared about that. And then the real Bruce Wayne's always been an interesting character, but I don't know. Like, is it really that fun to just watch him sitting around in a dark cave staring at screens or walking around the Wayne Manor? I do appreciate this movie was like mostly just him as Batman. And when he was Bruce Wayne, a lot of time he was in public still investigating. So we didn't really get a whole lot of personal Bruce Wayne time. And when we did, it was mostly when he's with Alfred. And I liked all those scenes, especially in the hospital. I think it was a good scene.
Yeah.
We got some humanity. I don't think we were allowed enough time with Bruce Wayne to really have too much of an opinion on how he played him, which is maybe something they'll address in the sequel. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I just don't think we had enough time to really go like, was he really Bruce Wayne or not? But as for Batman, I liked his portrayal. And this isn't just him. This is also, the cinematographer and the director. There's a lot of communication conveyed in just his face and eyes, and they really worked on communicating a lot through his eyes. Yeah. And I think he did a great job in that regard. There's a lot of scenes he doesn't say shit, but you get it. You know what's happening in it. And that's something between the actor, director, and all that stuff. And I think he did a really good job there. I also think the Batsuit looked really good. I think this is going to sound really weird. I think he's like one of the best looking Batman's out there. Like his suit, between his physicality and the suit, I was like, that's Batman. He looks fucking sick.
Got a little crush, dude.
Yeah. He was looking real good in that suit. I mean, Christian Bale's suit was cool too, in the way he looked, but he's got that weird fucking bottom lip thing. And then Ben Affleck was just like fucking in a Play-Doh suit.
I didn't even watch that.
Go into your plate. You will. That's what he does, dude. Let's talk about Bat voice. He does a completely different take on the Batman voice. I liked it. I know some people have criticized it because it's a little more. Some people, I think it's like people who are still upset about the Twilight thing. People are like calling it like emo and all sorts of shit. I think where Christian Bale, and I hate to keep comparing them, but it's almost impossible not to. What Christian Bale was doing was trying to be scary and intimidating with his voice. And I have to admit, if a guy in that suit came running at me and grabbed me and started going, and fucking going crazy, I'd be like, well, this is fucking nuts. Like, what the hell's going on, right? And then I feel like, not Batman, and Ben Affleck was trying to do something similar. So it wasn't even like that interesting. So I appreciate that Robert Pattinson, and apparently he said in an interview that when he was auditioning, he did his own Bat voice, and they're like, don't do that. So apparently the original concept wasn't that great. But what he's doing here, I kind of like, because it comes off as emotionally detached from the situation, because he's there on his own personal wants and needs and trying to figure out this case so he can stop it at any means necessary. That's why he's just getting shot nonstop. But also there's a mystery to it. There's a mysterious element to the way he talks. It detaches him from if you were to have a conversation with him outside of the Batman. That he doesn't talk a lot, and he doesn't talk in any kind of charismatic or notable way.
Yeah.
But it is still mysterious as well. And the thing that I really liked about it is he wasn't just always talking like that. Most of the time he's talking in that mysterious voice. But then other times when he's getting aggressive and like yelling and stuff like that, the scene with Riddler when he's like punching the fucking window and yelling at him, he's still maintaining a Batman voice, but then you're getting to those like Christian Bale levels of like the aggression. It wasn't just nonstop where he's just going, ugh, like whatever he's saying.
Yeah.
And so there was like levels to it that I thought were really good. But overall, I think his Batman is probably one of my favorites. Yeah, I feel pretty confident saying that. Him and Christian Bale for sure are the best Batmans. I'm not even a big Christian Bale fan. I know people are not going to want to hear that, but
I don't like Christian Bale as Batman.
That's fair.
I don't. I think Robert Pattinson is easily my favorite Batman. Just and to touch on the Bruce Wayne bit about it, I actually appreciated kind of how they played this Bruce Wayne thing. You know, I mean, yeah, I get that some of the criticisms I've heard are that, like, you know, he's the same. But again, it just feels more real. You know, it doesn't like this. It's so cheesy, like the Christian Bale, like super playboy thing, which I know is like, you know, that's the story or whatever. But I just remember like seeing that and it's just so cringy. So they kind of play with this idea that he's just kind of a recluse and like nobody gets to see or talk to Bruce Wayne. You know,
like
Alfred,
an actual billionaire.
Yeah, exactly.
You
like,
don't see him.
So you wouldn't see Batman and be like, oh, that's Bruce Wayne, because you don't know who Bruce Wayne is. You don't see him. He doesn't interact with the public. Like, you know, that the new mayor has to pull him aside at a funeral to talk to him about something because she can't access him. And same with the board from Wayne Corp or whatever. You know, Alfred tricks him into this breakfast thing that he does. Like, so yeah, they're the same guy because they're the same guy. You know, you don't know that because you don't know Bruce Wayne. Yeah. So it kind of adds to the realism that I really appreciated about this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say on Bruce Wayne. Yeah, overall, I think Robert Pattinson did a good job, though. And I don't know if I'm ready to say if he's my favorite Batman, but I mean, he's pretty much at that point. Him and Christian Bale are like up there. That might be a little biased in the sense I think Dark Knight is a better movie, but yeah, I think Robert Pattinson was great, so I have no complaints about him. I'm not on board of him being emo Batman because I didn't see it.
I didn't either. I think like there's a lot of things that like could have been just like edgelord Batman, but I think between like the directing and the cinematography and the acting, I think they pulled it off.
Yeah. The only edgelord thing, one of my only complaints about this whole movie, I got a couple, but one of my only complaints about this movie is, I'm going to say another blasphemous thing. I'm not a big Nirvana fan. That's an understatement. And there's two scenes where it was just like gloomy. It's playing a Nirvana song, and it's just like Robert Pattinson going, ugh. And I'm like, this is the only like edgelord feeling thing. It's not even his fault or anybody. That's whoever the fuck edited that and okayed that scene. It's not a big deal. It's more of a little nitpick. But yeah, there's plenty of room for him to be like the edgelord Batman, and I didn't get that from him at all. Especially when he was playing Batman, I think he came off mysterious, scary in terms of how people seeing him had to interact with them, whether they're getting punched in the face or just talking to them. I think he fulfilled the role just fine.
Believable like detective quality to him too.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
if you'd pull the bat suit off and he's just, you know, this dude at the scene, you know, he it's like a believable detective kind of vibe that he's got. So
yeah, I agree 100%.
I like that they did that.
Let's talk about Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon real quick. I think he did good. I wasn't like blown away by the performance, but I do really like what they did in the movie with the character, and the actor Jeffrey Wright has been solid in everything I've seen him in. It does feel a lot like one of the roles he's played in a lot of the things I've seen him in, but
it worked.
he did it fine. Yeah, I have no complaints. It's just it wasn't like stand out, but it complements the movie really well. I really liked the scenes he was in. I liked that he was working with Batman, and the whole scene where you know, the cops have Batman and they're getting ready to like pretty much want to beat the fuck out of him and like, you know, unmask him and stuff, and they kind of like, you know, coordinate a plan in a really one side note real quick. I know a lot of people think there's like no humor in this. I don't agree with that at all, but I appreciate that this movie is not trying to be funny constantly. It's like a serious movie. And it's, it adds to the tension, and the story and the atmosphere when they're not just cramming it full of humor. But there's that scene where they're kind of talking visually kind of aggressive, but they're talking about like getting Batman out of the precinct. And there's comedy to that because he punches him. And then later he's like, hey, you know, you have to punch me so hard. And he's like, I didn't, or something like that. I forgot what he said, but essentially just like, you know, is implying like I barely hit you. And he's like sitting there going like, God damn.
Yeah. I think
that was
I
funny.
laughed out loud at that part.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's humor there, but, this isn't a Marvel movie. It's not trying to be. And I really appreciated that. But yeah, Jeffrey Wright did a really good job. And, you know, I think he did a great job with what he was doing. Hopefully he gets, I guess, more to do. And I'd like to see his evolution as a character in the next movie. You have anything to add to that?
No, not really.
Let's talk about Paul Dano as the Riddler. This is a pretty interesting topic because this is not a Riddler that we've gotten in prior iterations. This is a dude who's essentially wearing a mask to reveal himself. He has a small fringe community on the internet that he's communicating with about doing certain. I mean, I'm talking spoilers here, but I'm not going to talk about every little thing. But you know, they got a plan on something they're going to do. He's essentially killing people and leaving ciphers and clues and stuff like that because he wants people to follow the trail. So there is, like I said earlier, like a Zodiac killer kind of vibe to it. And I mean, I think Paul Dano did a great job playing Eli from There Will Be Blood. Because I mean, it was very similar to that character in There Will Be Blood. But if anyone can play Eli from There Will Be Blood, it's Paul Dano, because he played him and he played him again in this. And I think he did a great job in both movies. He does have a very good, even in Prisoners, he's got a really good balance of being so weak and innocent and baby-like and just socially awkward to the point of feeling uneasy when you see him. And then he really knows how to play into letting you know you should be uneasy because he's fucking nuts. I do think he's getting typecasted a lot anytime I see him in a movie at this point, but he does it fine. And I think he played Riddler just fine. I can't think of somebody I would like rather had played his version of Riddler. This isn't a standout villain like, you know, Joker or something like that, but I think he did just fine, especially within the tone of the movie and the direction they went with the investigative nature of the movie. I think he was a great casting choice in this. And,
Yeah.
you know, he made a lot of goofy faces that I laughed out loud, especially in the diner when they're handcuffing him. That was fucking hilarious. I think his presence also before he's revealed is cool and unsettling. It's not just trying to be Joker, because a lot of things after Dark Knight were just like trying to make like, you know, some kind of Joker type villain. Like he does have his own essence, which I really kind of dug. And yeah, I because this is in a weird way like an origin story to Batman and his villains, even though it's, you know, year 2, the Riddler even felt unrefined. Like I feel like if he returns, we'll get more. We're not going to get Jim Carrey Riddler, but we're going to get more of a villain than the crazy guy that we got in this, who obviously showed he has the capacity to orchestrate these kind of crimes. He's only going to get better after being in Arkham with, I would assume, is the Joker. The guy he was talking to at the end. Spoiler alert. There's no spoiler alerts here. We already established this.
The whole thing is a spoiler.
True. What do you think of Paul Dano?
I
got a crush on him, dude? Like me and Robert Pattinson?
No.
Damn.
I thought he did a good job. I mean, don't disagree with anything that you said. You know, he just has this way of just like becoming this just like wet noodle. You know, you just
Soft
like look
baby,
at him
dude.
and you just see this like dripping wet like puppy, like a cartoon character. It's just so non-threatening, and yet he's just like psycho.
It's funny because that's a good point of non-threatening, because like I would never be threatened by Paul Dano, and I mean Paul Dano the actor, but also his characters in his movies. But you are threatened by what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, because he's so like unhinged and unpredictable.
That he would do something fucking nuts.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's what I really like about the Riddler. And like you said, he ends up playing a lot of characters that are kind of are reminiscent of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought he did a great job. I really liked that they did the Riddler, and I like that they did him this way, because I think it really plays off of where, you know, Batman is at this point. You know, I think it really, they did it well so that it sort of pushed the Batman's character development as well, which I thought was really interesting, you know, having them sort of like, or he has this moment where he's realizing that like the Riddler thinks they're like on the same team, and now he's like, what? But you know, I think in a lot of ways they're doing the same things in this movie, just kind of coming at it from a different perspective. And so I thought that was really interesting, really smart. Kind of for where, again, like where they're at with this kind of the story they're telling. So, yeah, I just thought it was a good choice. I'm glad that we didn't get another Joker movie.
Yeah, and the hint at the end where it's possibly, I'm assuming, Joker talking to him. I honestly, it might sound shitty, but I hope we don't get Joker in the second movie. If they want to bring Joker back, I'm obviously not opposed to it, because Joker is the anti-Batman. Like, he's the opposite of Batman in every way. But let's work our way to that. Let's not just jump right back into it, because like we just got Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, which was like phenomenal. DC, when they're nailing it, they're fucking nailing it, and when they're not, they're not. But and then, you know, we just fucked around with Jared Leto and his horrible rendition of the Joker, and then, you know, we have one of the most iconic villains in movies, which was Heath Ledger's Joker. He's up there with like Darth Vader, like fucking is a recognizable villain. So it's like it's the standard's high, and we've been flooding the Batman ecosystem with Joker after Joker after Joker. So I'm saying let's work towards it. We don't need him just yet. Let's dabble in another villain.
Yeah, I think it would be weird maybe if they didn't talk about the Joker at all. I kind of, like, in my head, what I hope, and you know, they can do whatever they want as long as they do it well, but I hope that like they sort of have introduced the Joker, and like the Joker exists in this world because he does, and maybe he's just not like the emphasis of any of these movies. Just like, you know, like if he's gonna hang out and like help the Riddler, again in one of these movies later. But I just don't want to see another like Batman versus the Joker like thing, unless it like is maybe like a culmination of like some movies, like some big story, that ends there.
Well, one thing this movie did really well that I really, really liked is it made Gotham feel big, and it made it feel like there's things happening in Gotham that everyone doesn't know about. And so like in a lot of other movies, they almost make it seem like Poison Ivy's over in this section of the city. Everybody knows she's there. This is her section. It's like playing like a Ubisoft game.
Yeah.
And this section, this is where Joker's at. And this section's where the Riddler's at. And you go there and it's all Riddler shit. And like this felt like, the Joker could exist for like years in Gotham and not have done anything huge. And so maybe not have the spotlight put on him yet until some kind of major event happened. Just like the Riddler's been chilling and doing his thing, but then he's decided to execute on his plan to start knocking people off. And it takes them the whole movie to investigate that as it's happening. And so I think this movie has set up a way that we don't have to hyper focus on villains in a, I guess, cartoony way. It can be revealed more naturally, and Joker could be hinted at possibly in a sequel, like he exists in Gotham. But we could just like go the whole movie without ever fucking seeing him. We don't have to worry about him.
In every movie, he could be in the cell next to the villain.
He just never leaves Arkham. The whole fucking
He's
if
just
they do a trilogy,
like we'll get a different villain in the next one, and at the end we'll get the same scene.
Maybe in year one, fucking Batman put him in Arkham. We just didn't see that.
Yep, and that's it.
Now he's just in there.
Now he's just there, hanging out with the other people Batman puts there.
Yeah, true.
Laughing. Being friends.
So yeah, I'm not in a rush to get Joker, but yeah, the guy who's possibly playing Joker, Barry, I don't know how to say his last name. I've heard people say Keegan. That's not how you say that. But Cohen, I don't know. I've seen him in a couple things. He always comes off as kind of like Paul Dano and like kind of like goofy, creepy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's got it to play Joker, but I mean, I feel like he'd do a better job than Jared Leto. So let's give him a chance, I guess, if we are going to give him a chance. Let's move on real quick to Zoe Kravitz, who played Selena Kyle, who is Catwoman. Her rendition of her version of Catwoman, I think, was pretty good. I also think how she played Selena Kyle was just fine. I think she did good. I have no real complaints about her. I do think her arc, though, does pull from the movie a bit and does feel like the slowest parts of the movie, in my opinion. And that's not her fault. It's not Zoe Kravitz's fault. She did a good job. But in the writing, I do feel like it's bloated. We're constantly hearing about Annika, which obviously does have to do with the story, but like we dwell on this for a while, and then her whole like I'm related to Falcone and I'm gonna kill my dad shit, and she doesn't even do that. Feels a bit cliche and a bit, as I said, bloated. I really was bored in a lot of these scenes. A lot of the scenes that where again she's working in collaboration with Batman, I thought were cool. Mm-hmm. A lot of the scenes where he's getting intel through her job, something she knows how to do, I think was a cool scene. Worked really well. And I honestly think the end scene with her and Bruce Wayne, I think was a pretty cool scene. I liked the almost like stoic nature of like, he could go with her, but he doesn't because he's more dedicated to this and he's willing to sacrifice his own personal wants and needs to
it was like one of those
commit to that.
Yeah, it was like one of those like riding off into the sunset scenes, except it like fit into the tone of this movie.
Yeah, in opposite directions, and I think is a really nice touch that they rode together. It wasn't like she left, then he went off and did his own thing. There's like a drawn out scene of like them together at a crossroads visually, and then they both go different directions. And the shot of him looking in the rearview mirror until she goes over the hill. I thought it was like a really good end scene, and it was personal. It wasn't like an end scene that ends Batman, but it was more like a personal note for Bruce Wayne. Add some humanity to that scene, and so no complaints for her, but I think her arc was not the best thing ever, but she had some good scenes for sure. I also was impressed with the It wasn't her on the bike, I'm sure, but the part where she rides up, hits the dude, and just grabs back and drives off. I was like, that was like fucking some. I don't know. It was wild looking the way they did that. And then like how this whole movie, I mean, we got a guy in a suit that looks like a bat, but she's not dressed like a cat, but her beanie's got little like things that almost look like cat ears, which I thought was a fun touch. And she's a cat lady. She has cats. I know a cat lady.
What?
You got cats, dude.
It's true.
We got cats.
We are cats.
We got cats. We're cat ladies.
Bunch of cat ladies.
Yeah.
I thought that her arc felt a little bit forced.
Yeah.
Like I felt, it was what we had this whole thing that like tied her into the story with her friend, and then suddenly also she's the daughter, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, why?
Yeah, it just felt, like I said, it felt cliche.
Felt like they really just like, okay, like how can we involve this character more in the story, even though we don't really need to. And
I would have been completely fine if she wasn't related to Carmine Falcone and like was introduced just because she happens to work at that bar.
Yeah.
And she was an in on that. And then she can stay part of the story because she has, skills in burglary and, stuff like that.
And her friend
would have been just fine.
Her friend still would have
got.
Yeah. So she still could have just had that motive,
It felt like the whole, like, almost like the Star Wars thing where, like, everybody's connected. You can't branch away from shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I just think is just tired. You can do it, but, it's whatever. You could do better.
You don't need to.
Yeah.
I just don't. It just doesn't. I don't know. I don't see any motivation.
Yeah. Anything else to say on Zoe Kravitz? No? Okay.
It's pretty good looking.
Sure. Right. And then we got Colin Farrell. Everybody's been talking about him when it comes to the stuff on his face that makes him look not like Colin Farrell. I think he actually said you didn't realize it was him.
I forgot that Colin Farrell was in this movie when
you thought that was Robert De
Niro. And then during the ending credits, when I saw his name is when I remembered. So at no point watching the movie was I like, wow, Colin Farrell's doing a great job. I was just like, that's cool. That's a guy. Mm-hmm. So, that's
cool. So they put a bunch of stuff on his face to make him look different. And at that point, it's just Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell's acting, which I thought was good. Colin Farrell's pretty hit or miss. Some things he's in, I'm like, he's getting a paycheck. And other times, I'm like, oh, he did good in this. I think this is one of those times where he's doing good. I think he plays a fun version of what an Irish guy pretending to be Robert De Niro would be like. I mean, that's literally what happened. He has the same mannerisms, all that stuff. But I think it's a fun take on Penguin. He's not cartoony looking. He just kind of looks like kind of penguin-y. But he really just sounds like, just some kind of like mobster type dude. I thought he was kind of like what we're saying with like, you don't have to just bring Joker in, but he can be like adjacent to the story.
Yep.
Penguin's only like, he's in it, but like he's not even fully established as like a villain. He's just part of this mob scene. He's pretty integral to the story. And there's a very cool car chase involving him. And every scene he was in, here's the thing: like every scene he was in was entertaining. I liked listening to his dialogue between him and Batman. It was always good. Yeah. So he was definitely one of the standouts. And it's not just the way he looked. He could have just been Colin Farrell with like a penguin nose, and I'd be like, okay, he's doing just fine. But the visual style was really good.
What if he's in like a penguin costume?
Like an actual, that'd be amazing. I almost wish they would have done that. It's just Colin Farrell in a penguin outfit talking like Robert De Niro. That's a missed opportunity. But he did a really good job, and he's getting his own series, which I think is weird because I don't know if I need to just watch a series about him. But I would like to see him in a movie later, kind of maybe, showing up in the side again for a second, and then maybe in a second or third movie getting more involved with other villains, because Penguin's always been kind of like, part of a villain's like group. He's not really operating on his own a whole lot, and so it'd be kind of interesting to see him get involved with some people. But in this, it was just like it almost seemed like he's getting fucked over a lot. So yeah, but he did a good job. I really liked what he did, and yeah, the car chase as well. Batmobile. You know, it's just a muscle car with a jet engine, but again, sound design, like I said earlier, the sound design made me really like that car. Because the scene where he's like getting his car to drive away and you just hear like this crazy like winding up jet engine and he like looks over and there's like blue light behind a car and then it just fucking takes off. Really fucking cool. And the chase scene was dope. It was pretty like straightforward. They're just kind of driving through traffic and cars are getting hit, stuff like that. But it had a really gritty nature to it that I really liked. And I feel like the stakes were there. And I feel like both actors in the scene really added to it. They added to the intensity of it. So I really liked it. But yeah.
Yeah, I liked the car chase. I mean, the car was just, I think, very easily could have been like the cheesy muscle car. But I think that they, like some other things in this movie, like just had just the right amount of those things, and so it was just kind of cool. And sound design, definitely there's some really cool, like the way they shot some of the scenes in the car chase I thought was really interesting. I was gonna say something I feel like about Penguin, but I don't. That's okay. But yeah, I thought that was a really cool scene. There was one moment in it where I was just like, okay, that's cheesy. You know, like when everything just like lined up perfectly and now the Batmobile's flying through the air. But the rest of it felt really like high stakes, like believable, like, you know, not like weirdly all these chips falling into place except for the one little part. So yeah.
Yeah.
Penguin.
I don't have a lot to say, but I think it's neat that they put Carmine Falcone in this, or Falcone, or whatever people say it differently. John Turturro did a really good job. It's nice to see him in a non-comedic role, because typically when he's in movies, he's always kind of like a goofy dude. I think he played this role just fine. He did actually really good. I thought it was kind of cool to add more of a personal touch to the Bruce Wayne story. On top of the Batman story of the investigation of trying to get Riddler. It's almost like two different story arcs were kind of happening that intermingled, and I think he did a really good job with that. Other than that, though, you know, he served his purpose. I don't have a whole lot to say about him. Anything?
Yeah. No, I thought he did a good job. I thought it was a... that's really it.
Yeah, sound design, visual style is really good. All the actors are. That's kind of the thing. We're talking about all the actors. Maybe we're spending a lot of time on it, but I think everybody was really well cast in this, and I think everybody did a good job. I didn't have really a problem with anybody, like acting wise, and that's really good.
A lot of just like solid performances.
Yeah, which I mean, you want in a movie, so it was like perfect. The story was cool. Again, we've kind of been talking about this whole time, but it does seem like it's a origin story of the Batman, and you know the way it unravels as a murder mystery kind of situation is really cool. I really enjoyed watching that unravel itself. The action I think is good. I don't think it's like the best we've seen with Batman, but it is cool, and it does within context, as long as this is what they're trying to do, it does add to the idea of a early Batman that has tech, but he's not fully using all that tech yet. I mean, he's got like a squirrel suit in his bat suit, apparently, that's like a legit just like glide suit, which I thought was weird looking, but also realistic. So, you know, it makes sense. He uses his grappling hook like once, twice, which is cool. He runs into situations that he can get easily overwhelmed. So he has to run, which, you know, Batman is a martial artist who does like ninja type shit, but he's not going to fight just like 25 dudes in a fucking tight room. So it's a situation where, you know, maybe in a comic he would throw down a fucking smoke grenade and disappear. But But yeah, the action overall was really good. I think it more served as to be impactful to the story and less about the spectacle of action. But there's definitely some really cool stuff we saw there. But a lot of it was just like one and done, like fucking just take a dude out as quick as you can, or take these guys out as quick as you can. You got more of a desperation in the combat than you did Batman's a badass who just kicks people's ass.
There's nothing like, he's not like Superman or whatever. There's nothing like mystical or magical about him. So I enjoy that there's just like a humanity to him, because that's what he is.
Yeah.
He's gonna get overwhelmed by 20 dudes or whatever, all shooting at him, or yeah. I liked that aspect of it.
Yeah, I like it as long as we're going with an early version of Batman, but Batman has been portrayed in most things as somebody who's like peak human, top fucking physical ability, master martial artist, who has all this tech and stuff. And so we didn't dive into that as you would in like the Nolan movies or any of the movies, but we did get a taste of it. And so I think it's a cool kind of middle ground.
Yeah, like building up to kind of that idea.
Because, well, and if they do in the second movie, then we're not building up, and then we just have to accept that this is more of like a sloppy, brutal Batman, which I'm okay with accepting. But there is one of the biggest appeals of Batman is how confident he is as somebody who is a smart, investigative person, but also proficient in combat, like far beyond other people. And outside of, people who actually have like superpowers and shit. And so I think anybody who would maybe complain about this, which I have heard complaints about, I'm not complaining. I liked it. I think they are missing a more combat ready and confident Batman. But I think if the story's doing what I hope it's doing, we're not there yet.
I mean, I what I got more from it, because I still got like combat ready, confident, he never hesitates or anything like that. There are moments where he doesn't have the upper hand, but at the same time, like, he comes out at the end with the upper hand. So I thought it was a good balance of still, having that sort of like steadfast determination that he has, that like drive, that motivation, which is what kind of pushes him. He just gets through it. Like, he's gonna come out in the end because there's no other option for him. So I still got that vibe. It just, like he's still figuring stuff out.
Yeah, in the combat I didn't get that, but I got the determination aspect for sure. What he has to do to get the job done, which I liked. But it did seem like situational awareness was not where you would want it to be with like a Batman in his prime, because he's getting shot a lot, he's getting hit a lot,
right?
But not in like I'm trying to defend myself way, but just getting hit like Terminator, which is cool. I liked seeing that visual, but I think it would pay off best if we got that in this. And then throughout a second and possibly third movie, he becomes a more refined Batman.
Yeah, I agree.
Somebody who is more prepared to drop in. Because there's like a scene in one of the Ben Affleck ones, whatever the fuck he was in, where he like blows through the floor and like drops down and takes all these dudes out and shit. And that seemed like more of like a comic book Batman. And so that's what I'm saying with like middle ground. We didn't get like something as well executed and quick on his feet as that, but he's also not just like laying on the floor getting his ass kicked. And he's also prepared in the sense that he's wearing bulletproof armor and shit, because he knows people are gonna have fucking guns and stuff. So yeah, like I said, I like what they did with it, and I think it could pay off even better if he evolves. I hope, and I have a feeling if they do a trilogy, I want Matt Reeves to do all three movies, because not that I'm like, this is the best movie ever, Matt Reeves should make it just because of that alone, but like I want his vision constantly through it. I don't want other people stepping in and ruining what he set up in this. We already learned this with fucking Star Wars, the new trilogy. You don't put too many cooks in one fucking kitchen. And so if you had Matt Reeves execute a second movie off of this, hopefully we would get that. There is a slow burn to this movie that I think a lot of people didn't get, especially when they're talking about it in more simple terms. When I'm looking at it going like, he starts out on a personal vendetta and ends realizing that he's a symbol of being a hero that people are gonna want more and more from. That happens slowly through the movie. You barely get it. And that was on purpose, I feel. So I want to keep exploring that. And I think you need the same people involved to do that. But, yeah, that just kind of goes back on the action thing. I feel like that's intentional. And I feel like if you throw another director in there who didn't catch on that or didn't give a fuck enough about that and does their own thing, you're not going to get that natural progression of like, oh, he's getting better at what he's doing. He's been at it, that was year 2. This is year 3 or whatever the fuck. So that'd be cool if they can do that. So yeah, combat's cool. And all the sets are really cool. All the set pieces are really cool. I do think the ending main event that happens isn't necessarily bad, but it wasn't as epic as I was hoping for. And I think the stakes were there, but there was characters involved that I did not care much about. The movie didn't really give me enough to care enough about like the potential mayor and stuff like that. The flood was really interesting. And the action with Batman and all the Riddler fucking wannabes, I don't know what you call them, putties. He's up there fighting them. It's pretty cool. He injects himself some shit to fucking be able to keep fighting, which was interesting. It showed that he is just human and that he can go down, but he does have stuff equipped to take care of this kind of thing. Showed vulnerability with him hanging off and someone putting a fucking shotgun in his face. But I feel like the end event could have been cooler, but it was fine. I think the end, like I said, with Batman and Catwoman, I thought was a really good ending. I actually really liked that. I like that it ended like that. And then I think finally the last thing I want to talk about really is the score of the movie. Is simple but cool. What's his name? Something Giacchino, I think his name is. The guy who made the music for this. He's making his rounds in a lot of movies nowadays, and he's really kind of got a sound that seems pretty distinguishable. And what he did with this I thought was pretty good. I think they repeat it a lot in different ways. It's the exact same song over and over again, but when it hits, it hits. When there's certain scenes happening and that just gritty swell happens, I think it's really good atmospherically for the movie. So I liked it, but I'm not super in love with it. I heard some people saying like, you're going to listen to this over and over again. I'm like, there's not really much to listen to over and over again. Like I got it. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on every little detail. I'm sure we could pick this thing apart. We talked about this way longer than I thought we were going to talk about it. Do you have more to say on it?
Not like specifically. I just think I thought Matt Reeves did a really good job, and I feel, and I know we kind of like touched on it loosely, but I feel like he really has like crafted this movie, and so I really also kind of see the potential there for him to do more movies and to build on like this, and that would make this better.
That was my big takeaway when we finished the movies. I was like, that movie's good standalone. It's good, but I think it has set up a really cool foundation for something that could be even better and make this movie better retroactively.
Yeah.
I think it seems intentional, and I hope he's able to execute on that.
Yeah, I think if, like you said, kind of loosely, if somebody else does the next movie, it could ruin this movie too. Like it could make it worse, or it could be better. Yeah. If the next one is good too. Or
it could just feel like its own standalone Batman movie with Robert Pattinson and all the same cast, but just like tonally completely different, which even if it's good or it's bad, it's going to feel off.
Yeah. I remember what I was going to say about the penguin thing though. It makes me nervous that they're doing like this spin-off show or whatever. Like I want this so badly to like be continued to be good and not be like tainted in any way. And like the more they do this like weird stuff or like, you know, what's going to happen with the second movie, I'm like, okay, like what's going to happen to this movie when we like take this good thing and just like make it worse. So that's kind of how I feel about the sequels too.
Too many avenues you can eventually kind of taint the whole thing. Yeah.
Too many lands.
Because now everything that's all the connective tissue between this and every other project, if other projects start coming out and they're not that great, I mean, bring up Star Wars again. Some of the new Star Wars stuff is cool. A lot of it's shit, and the shit does kind of taint the good stuff because you're like, that kind of sucks. They couldn't execute that well because now there's character share between these two things, so it's kind of weird. So. Yeah, I agree. If they're going to do the show, keep it short. Fucking hopefully you got a good enough story to even merit this. Don't do it just because you want to fucking, make an extra thing. I don't even know what the hell they're thinking about Penguin. They're like, we need to fucking have a whole show of his own. So yeah, do it responsibly, but yeah, you don't need a bunch of little mini series from this. They just need to focus on writing a good fucking story for a sequel. And then if you have like an idea that's like so fucking good that you have to make a series, do it. But
I have that later, like after we get this, like I'd really just love like a nice solid like trilogy of this that is as good as this and just like built on in all the right ways. And then maybe like later they could do that.
Yeah, sure.
But it worries me so early on in this like telling of this Batman.
Yeah. So over on TLG, which is my weekly gaming podcast, make sure to go check that out. Links down below in the info box. We grade things. So we're going to do that here. And if you haven't watched our Demon Slayer reviews, we're not grading each episode, but we're going to grade seasons. So go ahead and grade it however you want to do it, but also kind of give like a last remark to it.
This is my favorite Batman movie. Robert Pattinson is my favorite Batman. I
Perfect.
love the detective, like borderline horror vibe. I love this. This feels like a really well told, crafted world and story, which I really liked. A lot of interesting character development, a lot of like realism, which I appreciate as somebody, again, just not a big superhero fan. So I think this is a superhero movie that's really going to speak more to probably people like that than people who are expecting like a Marvel movie. But I would probably give this movie an A.
All right.
Just a nice, clean A.
Solid across the board.
Yeah.
It's higher than I thought you'd go. That's cool.
I really, really liked it. I think I tried to like pull that back a little bit for this, but yeah.
No, it's cool too because admittedly, you and I are both not huge comic book movie fans. Like I like them enough, but I view them as much as like, popcorn movies, like just kind of an action movie, like watching Transformers or something. But every once in a while you get, mostly from DC or Watchmen or something, something a little more, something to chew on.
A little more gritty.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think Matt Reeves did a really good job with this movie. I think Matt Reeves in his career so far, I've seen, can walk a line between big budget Hollywood movie that's for entertainment purposes, but also bring in some almost deeper indie movie flair. With the Planet of the Apes movies that he directed. These are big budget CGI fests that have really cool action, but they also had characters that were interesting that you could really dive into. So this isn't just the first time he's done this. And with that said, this movie's no different. I think this is a big budget comic book movie, but executed in a way that it makes you think and makes you appreciate relationships that people who wrote the movie and directed the movie thought about as well. And it really shows. And I really enjoyed that. I think Robert Pattinson is a good Batman. I do want to see him as Batman again for sure. And out of all the Batmans that have existed, he is easily second to first best. I liked him a lot. And the cast is fantastic. Everything about the movie is really good visually, and the action's good. It has a couple weaknesses, but it is just the first of, I'm assuming, at least two or three. And I think it was a really solid movie. I really enjoyed it, and I do want to see a sequel to it. So I'm going to give it an A-. It was a completely solid comic book movie, and I think it is one of the best Batman movies. So congrats on that, because there's a lot of them.
That's higher than I thought you'd go.
I almost went B+, but I don't think there's a whole lot of weaknesses to the movie, and I was satisfied with it. So, especially for comic book movie, because most of them I go into going like, it'll be fun, but that's it. And this, I was like, nah, they did some really cool stuff with it, especially on like the filmmaking side of it. I really enjoyed the cinematography, and the atmosphere was consistent. They did a great job unraveling a mystery in a way that I wasn't expecting from a comic book movie. So. Yeah, strong, confident, A-. Anything else you want to say?
Nope.
All right. Well, let us know in the comments what you guys think of the Batman. What you think of Robert Pattinson as Batman? Who's your favorite Batman? What's your favorite Batman movie? What you think about Paul Dano as the Riddler? What do you think about possibly bringing in the Joker with Barry Keoghan? What do you think about Andy Serkis as Alfred and Colin Farrell as the Penguin? Zoe Kravitz, do you like what she did with Catwoman? Did you like her arc? Are you on kind of where I'm at, where it's like, it's a little bloated, or were you into it? And what's something we didn't talk about that maybe you wanted to hear from us when it came to this long conversation about the Batman? Let me know what you think about in the comments below. And that's going to do it for this Tasty Flicks review of the Batman. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to, support the channel and also see our upcoming episodes. We'll be doing more reviews soon. Hopefully we can maybe tighten up a bit the way we review it. This was our first review, so it went pretty long, but that's fine. I think we had a good conversation. And check out TLG. And I've been Seth. This has been Sarah.
Bye.
Until next episode, have a good one, and see you later.